So once upon a time, this was the future. But now the future is here, and it doesn't seem like it was ever part of its plan. A car that looked like it had time travelled from some obscure corner of the universe and somehow landed on planet Earth. This car then was set to change everything. A hybrid supercar and a saviour of the planet. This was proof that being green didn't have to be boring. Only it didn't quite work out that way. The i8 broke boundaries when it was released in 2014 and sent much of the automotive industry into a frenzy. It looked like something from the year 2050. The doors went up, the lights glowed like alien eyes. It looked like something you'd park on the moon. It had a carbon fibre chassis and promised 100 miles to the gallon, although promised is the key word there. And the noise, well, there wasn't much of that, but BMW promised us that this was the future of performance motoring. And from where we were stood, it looked pretty good. Limited to 155 miles an hour, 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. Well, that's enough to make even the most hardcore petrol heads smile. And given this car's environmental credentials, not even Greenpeace could knock you for owning one. It seemed that petrol sniffers and tree huggers alike could come together and admire what this car had done. It had brought the best of both worlds together. It seemed like this would be the all-fulfilling prophecy of what motoring would soon become. But 10 years on, the future has came along and turned its back on this car. But why? Well, it's baffling because the potential was definitely there. It had the looks of an Italian supercar, and this wasn't just some eco hatchback with a conscience. This really was a halo car. A promise from BMW that driving pleasure could still exist in a world of silence and sockets. Just look at the curves of this car. They're not only producing downforce, they're letting the air dance over this car at high speed. It's almost like someone was given the task of designing a Toyota Prius for Batman. Now, I had just passed my test when this car came out, so the closest I got to driving it was spotting it in traffic whilst I was behind the wheel of my 10-year-old Citroen C3. Now, I know that if I did have the chance to drive this car back then, I'd have been so overjoyed and overwhelmed that I wouldn't have been able to say anything bad about it. But I've tried to get in the car with the same expectations I would have had back then. But just like they say you shouldn't meet your heroes, it has felt a bit flat. Now, the supercar looks can be deceiving, especially when you know the engine sits at the rear. But the clever tech in this car means that the environmental department at BMW could say no to a great big stomping V8. And they could even turn their noses up at a V6. Instead, behind you is a 1.5 three-cylinder engine from a Mini. Now, if nobody told me or I didn't already know that, I do wonder whether I'd have noticed at all. But I think the giveaway would have been that there is some oomph that just seems to be missing, particularly from the engine sound itself. And yes, there might be some clever trickery and fake engine noises playing through the cabin that might fool most of the middle-aged middle management men that are buying this car just to impress their own parents. It's a bit like a bodybuilder being on steroids. Yeah, he might look good, but the limp-wristed handshake is normally enough to give it away. And in a car that looks this impressive, you'd probably do everything you could to make sure that people didn't know the engine came from the same car that even your mum would probably call sluggish.
And there are some other annoying things too.
For a start, the mirror on the passenger side rattles like crazy. And although those wheel arches look absolutely stunning, you do glance in the mirror and think that someone has rear-ended you without you realising. And then you have the kind of power usage or rev counter which goes anti-clockwise. You have the speedo which goes the normal way around, and then that's backwards. That just doesn't make sense. Awfully sorry, officer, I didn't think that I was speeding. Just the rev counter's back to front. It's like the whole car was designed and built in Germany, but then they left the speedo dial to the French. The plastic buttons all seem a bit cheap, the infotainment system gives me a headache, and right in the middle of the steering wheel it says BMW. Ugh. Then again, I've always preferred Audi or Mercedes. Now when I first got in, I did find the drive modes a little bit confusing, although I have worked that out as time has gone on. But it is a bit like doing a word search where you have to make up the words. You've got normal drive modes, you've got comfort, you've got Eco Pro, you can drive an electric, then you've got sport mode, and I didn't know what the plus and minus sport meant. And then I realized you have two options to change the gears. You can do that through flappy paddles in sport manual mode, or you can do it on the gear selector here and go up and down the gears. I do quite like that. But then in comfort and eco mode, the gearbox is so dim-witted that it actually makes you feel sick. It literally does, because whilst it's trying to change gear, it's like doing a hurdle jump. You kind of get this forward-throwing motion effect each time it tries to engage, disengage, use a little bit of turbo, rely on the electric motor. It's like it's all kind of under the bonnet, just going after you, after you, after you, and they haven't managed to really get that singing on the same hymn sheet. But with most supercars, practicality obviously isn't at the forefront. Take the boot, for example. As long as your weekly shop includes nothing more than a bar of chocolate, then you should be all right.
But the most annoying feature of all is actually those signature doors. As you can see, our crew van parked right next to us, and from inside the car, it's impossible to know how much space you have. And then when you can open the door, you'd rather not have a camera crew filming as you attempt to get out.
Not that you'd really want to get out of the car, because it's pretty fast, like very fast. Oh my God, when you put your foot down, there's nothing much suggests that that is an engine from a Mini. It's much, much quicker than that. Woo-hoo! Not many driver assists getting in the way. You can actually take control of this car. This is what we want from hybrids, to still have some sense of control. At least let us change gear. This is what you want. Downshift into this bend. Yes, this is what this car is made for. It is built for performance. There's no doubt about that. It's like the faster you go, the lighter the steering gets, the more agile, the more nimble this car becomes. It really is at home, at speed. That's what you buy this car for. Yes!
It seems then that this modern day musical of technology and electronics still loves a bit of throat-punching heavy metal.
Now, you're certainly not achieving 100 miles to the gallon driving like this. Well, let's be fair, you were never achieving that anyway. And the faster you go, the more power you use, the more brakes you use, the more electricity you are generating in the battery. Now, it's 10 years on since this car was released. We all know how a hybrid system works. But it's still baffling to get your head around the idea that the faster you drive, the more you can then depend on a battery, which protects this, the environment that we are driving through right now. If you've seen any Just Stop Oil protesters in the road right now, they wouldn't be protesting. They'd be stopping you to ask for a ride.
The performance of this car then was never in doubt, but its future? Well, it seems there was always someone just around the corner ready to steal the spotlight.
Then came the Teslas and the Taycans, and all of a sudden the i8 wasn't really relevant anymore. It was a bit like the middle child, not loved as much as the youngest and not as respected as the eldest.
And some cars can stand the test of time, and visually, no one can argue that this car doesn't. It still looks 100 times better than cars on the road today. But its popularity in the marketplace, well, that seems to have taken a tumble.
If you bought one of these brand new, you probably feel about as daft as the guy who bought a horse on the day the car was actually invented.
And I took a break from the driving to take a look at just how bad the situation was.
This car's depreciated like faster than gravity itself. I mean, like, I'm scrolling through Auto Trader now, and you can pick this car up for less than the cost of the van that is used by our camera crew to ferry all the equipment round. Like, it's absolutely insane. At 100k for one of these brand new, you'd need some serious consideration and maybe even a bit convincing, but for 25 grand, it's practically an impulse buy. I don't think this car could have depreciated any faster than if I drove it off that cliff edge right there. But maybe this is the thing, like, so many of our greatest innovations in human history came with a bit of doubt. People thought the computer was a stupid idea, people thought the internet was a fad. And maybe the first prototypes were a bit naff, but we've all got to start from somewhere. And maybe that car deserves a little more credit for what it might have kick-started in years to come.
The i8 wasn't perfect. In fact, I'm not sure it ever claimed to be. But it was brave. In a world obsessed with playing it safe, BMW built a car that dared to imagine something different.
And being different, well, that's where the magic lies. The Citroën DS, the original NSX, the McLaren F1, and for a brief, beautiful moment, the BMW i8. And maybe that's it. This car was never the future. It was just an idea of one. And what a brilliant idea it was. But not all ideas age gracefully.
The conception of a car can be simple. An idea sprinkled with a little bit of belief.
And belief, well, that's one of the most valuable currencies in the world. And this car was full of it. And you know what? I rather like that.